Hey everybody, we're back now for reels. Um, Not on reels, for reels. I know we said we were back, and then we took a break. We had a thing. Anyways, today we're gonna be talking about the Barbie movie. I called it Barbenheimer, but we're really gonna be looking at the licensing and kind of the back end momentum that has kind of made this movie something that you can't walk outside without knowing that it exists or that it's happening. There's a lot of people talking about the different types of collaborations and licensing deals that are going on with the Barbie movie. That's not what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about kind of the underlying structure of all that and the business of that. So without further ado, let's talk about Barbie licensing for the movie. So, first off, one of the things that I feel like should be denoted is that there's a difference between like a licensing deal and a promotional partnership. And a lot of times for movie launches, what ends up happening is that you end up doing what's called a promotional partnership instead of a licensing deal. And the big difference between those two is that generally there is no minimum guarantee, where if it's something more straightforward like an evergreen property like Mickey Mouse, if you wanted to put him on mugs, you'd probably pay, okay, to use Mickey for your collection of mugs, it's going to be $10,000 to $100,000 depending on the size of the collection upfront as the minimum guarantee that Disney is going to get. And then, anywhere from 7 to 10% royalties against that minimum guarantee. And then once you go over, you start paying just a percentage of the sale at the royalty rate. But because a new property, a new movie, something like that is untested, and the movie could blow up and it could be awesome, or potentially it could flop and then they pull all the marketing. The trade-off there is that they don't require a minimum guarantee. Usually, they'll just take a percentage of the sales at a royalty rate. There was a movie that I won't say the movie because it didn't end up doing well, but there's a movie right before COVID that was supposed to be coming out that I was pitched on doing product for, and it was like, hey, do this big kind of like collab with the movie. It's a very high profile movie, and I got a sizzle reel on like the director and all the reasons why it was going to be a great movie. And then they essentially wanted the product to come out leading up to the launch. They were going to have kind of like pop-up events, activations like on Hollywood Boulevard and stuff like that, and then product could be kind of integrated into that. And we ended up passing on it. And lo and behold, like a month out from the movie, all of the marketing goes away for it. The reviews start coming in that it's horrible. The studio just kind of releases it and then kind of like drops it. And if I had made a ton of product for it and I was waiting for this like big launch, I would be out of luck. And that's really the other side of that coin, is that you could wind up with a bunch of merchandise for a movie that people have negative feelings about, have no feelings about, but you're just kind of stuck with it. And then, it's a lot of times in deals where there's other people's IP, you can't really discount it without their prior approval. So it's not even like you could send it all to a third tier like retailer to just buy all the stock and be out of it. Sometimes you might be stuck with it and you might have to just actually destroy it and take a bath on whatever you paid for it. So it is a toss up with Barbie. I don't know what the actual deal structures look like, but I'm assuming that there was a little bit more give and take there because the licensing and all the partnerships were strategically executed on as part of the lead up to the movie, where traditionally that's a much, much smaller part of kind of the overall movie's marketing. This was a very intentional push, which I loved. But still, there is a little bit more incentive for brands to kind of take a leap of faith, on a new property, because there's not as much financial, demand up front. Again, there are a lot of air quotes, but that's kind of the difference between an established property licensing and like a promotional partnership. So that was probably one of the reasons why they got so many people on board very early on, was a unique deal structure because of the nature of it. Two, another reason why a lot of people were jumping on this potentially is that the other side of that coin has so much upside. If you can be part of a movie's licensing and you're part of that kind of initial push, and the movie becomes like a cultural like phenomenon, you're in it. You're part of it. You're not just a hop along, way down the line. You're manufacturing product when you see that the reviews are really, really great, and by the time you get something on the shelf is months and months down the line, you kind of already missed the wave. You have potential to like ride that wave if it ends up being just like this runaway hit. So it's kind of like, I don't know, it's like betting on 00 or something. There's a good chance with how many movies get made and released that it won't be exactly that. But when it hits, oh my gosh, does it hit? And that's another big reason why somebody might roll the dice on something like that. Being top of mind with your customers, being top of mind with the intellectual property helps you be top of mind with people that are not yet your customers. And I'll give you a perfect example of this. So you're seeing the Barbie movie stuff everywhere, obviously. You're like, oh, I go into the mall, this store does it, that store has it, that store has it. I go online, a candle company, a rug company. You're seeing it everywhere. Barbie is this very unique kind of, I want to say vanilla property, but it's just kind of, they're leaning more into it being more of an overall, I want to say lifestyle, but it's more of a vibe, we'll call it, than a physical like person or thing that you're kind of using as the intellectual property. There's a lot, something that's just hot pink that maybe has, some subtle design cues. You're like, oh, I know that's Barbie, because it's less about actually that doll or that face and more about kind of the whole vibe around it. So it leaves room for a lot of interpretation or input from the brand side. And that, if you look at some of the other videos we've done, to me, that's like the best licensing. The best licensing is the one where you take some of the DNA of the brand and some of the DNA of the intellectual property, and you put them together to create this unique expression that is not either of those things, but a little bit of both and its own unique thing. And Barbie, in the licensing of this movie, gave brands that space. So I do not wear Crocs. I have not thought about Crocs, but we were at the mall and we were looking, and Aldo did a Barbie thing, Cotton On had a Barbie thing, and we were going, oh wow, Cotton On was going like really 80s with kind of the iconography and the colors and the way that they were kind of stitching together the fabrics. It looked really, really cool, super 80s. And then Aldo was doing this more high fashion thing. And then we walked by the Crocs store and I saw the Barbie. And having never thought about wearing Crocs, I said, let me see how Crocs did Barbie. And I walked into the store and I looked at their merchandise. And while I was there, I was like, oh, they have sandals, they have this and that. I was never going to be a potential lead or a customer in their orbit. But because they did something like this, it had the license was more top of mind. So I was already more prone to kind of zero in on that when I saw it at the store. And it got me to spend about 5 minutes in their store, where otherwise I would have never walked into that store. So that's another reason, again, to kind of jump into this pool of new property. It's really easy for a lot of people to get the license. It could be kind of a cultural phenomenon. You get a lot of potential new eyeballs because people are kind of top of mind with Barbie or whatever the IP is. Fourth reason why people kind of jump into this is the press, obviously. This kind of folds into that first point of the upside of these things when they hit is just so phenomenal. The press, the earned media that you get and how much that would traditionally cost a brand is insane, because you know it, you're seeing it. There's listicles on the top 10 Barbie brand collabs. There is, did you see this and that about Barbie? They turned Barbie into a candle. It's so easy, not so easy, but it is very easy to get a lot of good press coverage that you would have normally had to either pay through the nose for or would not have had access to if it weren't for those outlets looking for those kinds of stories, because they know that their readers are looking for stuff surrounding this kind of cultural phenomenon that is Barbie. And again, great opportunity. You jump in early, you get more of that runway leading up to the launch. You jump in late when you wanted to see if other people were getting traction with it. You're late to the party. You're not necessarily going to be involved in those circles, and you're kind of having to buy in at a later stage. So that was just a little peek behind the curtain on how these deals are structured and how some people might want to be jumping in to something like this, like a new property instead of something more established. Of course, that was not an exhaustive list. If you have specific questions, you're like, but I really want to know about this, or you want to get into this type of licensing brand partnerships with your brand, and you kind of want to know, where do I start? Is it the same thing as licensing as far as getting a foot in the door? Please feel free to leave a comment. Please reach out to me on Twitter. That is where I'm spending most of my time today, being in the kind of the startup building in public space. And then next week, we're going to be talking about the other side of this kind of coin. This kind of, it's everywhere, it's in your face, so many brands are jumping on board, a studio is pushing on it, but we're going to be talking about what happens when that goes sideways. And in the Barbenheimer, this is more of a spiritual Oppenheimer. It's not talking about Oppenheimer, the movie, because there's no licensing around that, but it's more of that kind of happy and sad dichotomy. We're going to talk about something that a very famous mouse did, and how on paper the playbook is almost the same, but the results are disastrous. So make sure that you like and subscribe. I guess you just need to subscribe. You don't need to like it. It's fine. I'm here too. I get it. But anyways, so until next week, it's been business as usual.